All right, welcome back, everybody. Episode 33 of the Leonis support. JB and I back again. News updates, chit chat, whatever the wind blows this week. But how you doing so far, man?
Hanging in there. Had a pretty good weekend, but I just had my vaccines injections yesterday and been a little bit under the weather today. Didn't sleep very well at all last night, so running on fumes at the moment. How about you?
Right there with you. So I just found out about half an hour ago. I literally tested positive for COVID. So I've been sick for like the past 4 days, and finally decided to just kind of confirm. And we got the confirmation. And I haven't left the
Oh
house,
man,
so it still sucks, but it could be worse.
yeah, I've heard it is going around again. It seems like par for the course this time of year. So
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't last too much longer for you.
No, definitely, and hopefully it doesn't impact us tonight. I know I probably look exhausted. Hopefully, I'm not talking nonsense here, but we got some good stuff to cover. We're going to go over the Black Friday deals, the Pixel Remaster, what we thought of all the shop deals and the banners themselves, good and bad. The new Esper for Shinryu with the Vision card. Final Fantasy IX was announced in the live stream last night. We can talk a little bit about that. We have some limit break upgrades to go over for a couple characters that are OGs that well deserved. And then we will just talk briefly about Helena and how to approach her in the next coming weeks. We have a roadmap that they shared with us, which is actually pretty awesome. I like having that insight. And then some Q&A to round things off. And so, yeah, the Black Friday deals here. What do you think of what they did for Black Friday?
This was really like a return to form for global. Like these are the kind of, packs and deals we would see on the shop on a regular basis in the first 2 years of the game. Really have gone AWOL here for well over a year now at this point. So it was really, really nice to kind of get those back. And I hope that, if those are the things that folks out there have been waiting for, I hope that people got in there and took advantage and send Gumi a message that, this is the kind of deals that we'll support. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing banners. Like we talked a little bit about it last week. Some of the best we've ever seen. And then this week, I thought that 600 shard select was great, but this week with the 5 select URs, like up through Melnia, had Saul in there, you had Alaya,
Yep.
units that I paid a lot of hard-earned Visior for. But yeah, it's good for catch up. I think that's really good thing for the game actually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hopefully the increase in spending in global will far exceed what we normally see, and hopefully that's at least a little bit of a light bulb for them to say, hey, this strategy actually works. We've kind of pounded our fists on the table to say do more, and they haven't. I even posed a question on the live stream that kind of got a tongue in cheek answer, so we finally actually have it. I do hope people bought. From what I can tell, it seems like most people did buy. If not, what is it? Pack F is a $7 one and pack
Yeah.
H is yeah. So at least from what I've heard, everyone bought pack F, which is great at the start. But even pack H, that's the kind of deal. When you talk about Black Friday, it's not about getting stuff for free. It's about getting stuff discounted. And so to that end, like the fact that you get 3 of the pack H's and the pack F, and then the banner to select 5 up to date units, as you mentioned. I am at this point of the game's life cycle very much pro them increasing the accessibility to pulling units, being able to use the units. That's really the most fun part of the game at this point. And we're kind of seeing this right now. They're kind of gatekeeping the new cost system around like hollow vision cards. So at this point, all right, you get the units, that's cool, but we're gonna gouge you for the vision card if you really want to optimize them. And so I hope this is the start of a little bit of a strategy shift where, yeah, they're a little more liberal with the characters and building them. We've gotten the Helena shards bugged that were refreshed 3 times in a row, that a lot of people are pulling that unit now that maybe didn't plan on it. And hopefully that, again, all these things hopefully kind of lights that fire under Gumi to say, we have a strategy that's viable and go forward with it. Yeah.
And the thing is that like literally everything in the game is a revenue stream for them. It's the way that they design the game from the beginning, that there's all these toggles and levers for them. At this point, we need so many shards to build the units. Like is it really killing them to make the units more accessible? I really don't think so. So yeah, I really am glad to see it, and I hope it continues. It's really we're going into the holiday season where typically in Christmas and some of these other holidays we might see some nice stuff as well. So yeah, very very exciting news.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously encourage people to pull those units if they want to. Again, that's massive catch up. I actually figured share this story. This is a fun one. Korea, who is part of the I'm Retired Guild and formerly VIP, she's notoriously like the best wall builder in all of global at the moment. She's basically taking over a lot of the strategic duties of my guild. I'm Retired, and I was doing the limited guild war videos last week, and I messaged her because I wanted to share some video replays of our wall and like enemy walls. And her response, I was flabbergasted, was like, go ahead and share. I don't care if they see us. I don't care if they copy us. I want you to teach people how to be better because I want the challenge to come back in the game and I want people to catch up. And I was so like that like the best wall building in the game was like, give me this challenge. I want people to like get good and like get units and participate. That I think that's kind of a feeling that a lot of people at the top end of the game are. We're not like gatekeeping anymore to say like, oh no, like we spent viz on these units, we don't want you getting them. Like no, we want everyone to still like participate and get better, and I think this is a good way to do it.
I mean, the really nice thing is that because of their sort of change in approach to the units, that 5 select is giving you essentially access to the 5 best units in global right now.
Right.
You know, you have Saul, you have Elia, you have, you know, several others in there. Of course, some of the limited ones like Bradley and Dialdo, Raf, they're not in there, but you know, a couple of those were just in that reincarnation fest too. So
Yep.
I think that you know, the last month or so hopefully is a nice replenishment towards that mid tier of the game that I think has really struggled since, you know, Gumi really tightened down the reins on our economy, and kind of the how they had typically treated us here in global for a number of years. So
Totally. Yeah, well, I mean, so that's all the good things they did. It wasn't perfect though. There's definitely some constructive criticism that we have on at least a couple of things. I know it's noticeably, uh, and I'll start off the topic on one of them, and I'll let you talk to the other. We've got a lot of units. We were just talking about. There was virtually not none, but much less emphasis on vision card catch up. Where there's still a bunch of limited vision cards you can't get access to. There's still a bunch of select vision cards that, yeah, we've had a lot of these select shards and whatnot, but to catch up on the vision card side has been much tougher. And you know what? That kind of goes back to what I was just saying a second ago. Maybe that's their way of gatekeeping and gating some of the cost for some people. But the lack of vision card catch up definitely hurts too, where you do want to be able to maximize these units, and not having that is a tough thing as well. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that part of it.
definitely. I mean, the vision cards remain like if you don't get them on banner, incredibly hard to build because we only have that one hard quest that you can do per day, and it literally takes 4 months to complete a vision card if you pull it off banner, which is absolutely insane. Of course, you can use some vision stars, and that can kind of speed things up a little bit,
I was just
but
gonna say that, yeah.
that is kind of the one of the issues with these new vision cards and why people are a little bit upset because to this point still no vision card, you know, like I said, just a one hard quest. And I remember vividly, like in that first year, maybe even up through the second anniversary, we would get vision card shard select like routinely on vision card banners, um, where you could select 50 or 100 shards, and that would kind of help people catch up. I really wish they would implement that again, and I definitely agree. That was one thing that I noticed missing as well, the VC catch up.
Yep, definitely. It's around, and like you mentioned, not only is there the Mog shards, but even the Mog shop exchange. Like after you pull a certain amount of dupes, after something's been in the pool for long enough, you can go back and buy it. So it's not an end all be all, but it's to even nail the card in the first place. Like I've been pulling the Minotaur card for like 3 months, and I finally just got it like last week. That, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people that have similar stories. But I know the other thing that we were kind of poo pooing, and that's kind of related for me too, is the Pixel Remaster banners. That right now it's a total RNG fest for who you get. It's still just as expensive, if not more expensive, to pull and max many of these units. I did an analysis on their upgrades. We've talked about their upgrades. These characters aren't anything special, quite honestly. They're really very much power crept. I don't see any of them that really have a strong future. And so the cost, particularly for new players that obviously you're attracting fans of the series to come pull their favorite characters, I wish there was a little more accessibility to give those people dabbling in War of the Visions the first time and people just catching up more opportunities to get the units they want, and they're treating them all equally, which is what's kind of sad. Like Bartz is on a completely different tier than Cecil. It's just not even remotely close. That you know, I think they could have done much better with the banners. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the only way you can select a unit is if you work over 10K paid, and it's not even like you get the level 120 version like we just saw, you know, recently. on one of the banners. You start off with 0. The shard access for these units is also pretty bad. There's just one 40 pack for each unit in the shop.
Right.
You gotta go whimsy hunting for these units.
Oh,
Like it's really, really poorly thought out. Really, yeah, as good as those other banners are, this is really, really bad. So Gumi, rethink how you're, treating these banners. And does it really do anything to like give people access to 5 or 10 packs of shards in there? You're still buying them. Like I don't
right.
understand this tie into the whimsy shop. Like nobody ever liked popping the whimsy shop. It's terrible.
Nope.
Stop,
Yep.
please.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, and on that note too, there's a lot of vision cards that are exceptional and espers that are part of the Final Fantasy collabs. I know notably we talk about like Death Machine as an esper and a vision card. I know people had questions about some of the other Final Fantasy oriented ones, like can we pull, should we pull? I know Valfor was a big one because that esper for so long was a great like anti-dark and reduced cast time esper that even here to catch up on some of those that are such crucial pieces, the accessibility is a lot harder and would like to see people get an edge on that.
For the vision cards and espers, it was a little bit better for the pixel remasters because you had a 2K selector, 2K paid selector, which is always good. And then for 10K, I think you could guarantee yourself 2 cards.
Oh, I don't know it was that much. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I've seen people dropping 10K, getting Demon Wall and Valifor or Manipul or some of these other, collab espers. So
Yep.
that
Still,
one, it's still not amazing, but it's definitely better than the unit side in my opinion.
I was just gonna say 10K paid is like what, $140, something like that. Yeah. So it's still
For a level 1 unit, like
yeah.
and I mean they did, like you said, like these units aren't that great at this point, other than maybe a couple of them like Ferris and Bart's. Them like delaying their upgrades for so long was a disservice to them because even when they came out in JP, the upgrades really weren't stellar, other than maybe a couple of the units. So us then now delaying them a couple more months just makes them even worse.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. So in hindsight, that's probably what we would have done better, particularly just because I know there's been an influx of people that I would have thought you'd want to keep a tighter net around the people coming back into the game and try to hook them, and not just make them blow their whole savings up front for a character that's maybe going to disenfranchise them as they realize that it's not a good unit and they're not clearing content they want to because of it. Then again, a lot of PvE content clearable with a lot of units that you wouldn't expect. So if that's the angle that Gumi's going with, that they're just going with the PvE angle, and if you want to do PvP, you got to pay. That makes sense too.
Can see that.
Yeah. Okay, on that note, we do have just some new content to talk about, noticeably Shinryu, the Esper and Vision card. So this is technically our first real official Holo Vision card, and I'll be honest, I didn't track exactly how much it cost me. I know I had to pity it, that much was certain, but overall, I think this is a great one to roll out with, considering it's both an Esper and a Vision card. I love this Vision card. Have you done any kind of analysis on this yet?
Well, I mean, in terms of pulling it, it takes 1,000 coins to pity it. So it's I think it ended up being like 19K to guarantee the card. But at this point, we're also not able to use vision stars to get additional shards. So that does increase the cost of it a bit. They have actually done some things for global here which do improve the situation versus what it was in JP just a little bit, which is nice to see. That I think that's a win for us, in terms of the cost. At the end of the day, though, it's still considerably more than we're used to paying for vision cards. But at least in this case, it does have an Esper as well, so that it does make it a little bit more enticing.
Absolutely. And yeah, the Vision card, I know it's the arena bonus this week, so you'll probably be seeing a lot of it if you haven't already. The stats on it are obviously are great. The accuracy on the bestowed effect is certainly nice for a lot of these units that don't typically have the accuracy, but to me the big thing that stands out is the 25% debuff weakening. We've like low-key under the radar hyped this for months now, ever since it first came up as the Esper node on Dark Siren, after it was on the Glaciella, Summer Glaciella Vision card as well. We felt it the most when we were talking about the Alaya meta, when we were talking about reducing that imperil by 25%, what that means. But now we're seeing, more imperils, not only with characters like Helena the Black Rose, who has that big AoE imperil. This does affect that, where it's not a 60% reduction of your AoE res. This takes off 25% of that. I think it's a really strong card for that alone. The slash res is kind of whatever. The human killer is definitely nice considering the units on here. But I love what they did for the classes too. I don't know if you've thought about any teams outside of some of the mono element stuff here.
Well, I mean, in terms of comboing with Black Mage, I think I said last time that the one team that I had been enjoying already was Summer Glassy, tanking for Helena. I think it's a really strong combo. And, despite this being a magic focus card, just getting that debuff weakening onto Glassy is definitely a win for her, because that kind of goes right into her wheelhouse. And I believe she can get, if you happen to be able to work in like the beach card in the main slot and this in the sub slot, have Dark Siren on there, she can get near 100% debuff weakening, which is quite substantial.
Incredible. Yeah, seriously incredible. Um, but yeah,
And
it's
having that permanent too, which is the crazy part.
right. It's non-dispellable. That's the big thing, is what things are dispellable and not. And vision card effects are primed for that, where it's just a permanent increase of that. And there's a lot of great characters on here. You were already mentioning Summer Glaciella. She's really the one of the ones that still stands out. But Helena the Black Rose, Vivi coming in a couple weeks. Those that are still heavy in the dark with Sephiroth and Dark Fina. I know there's a lot of characters that Faris in the water element, and Reagan and Howlet and the ice element for those sword red mage classes are really popular. And Gumi kind of giving some love to the gun units still here, where just adding them in, giving them some viability. I can't say I'm envisioning any magic team, or not magic, it's the wrong word, envisioning any special teams with gunner units on here, but like it's nice to have them on here. And most of them are physical attacks, so they're not getting the modifier here, and the slash res is kind of whatever for them. But
I mean, on that note, it's definitely nice having a magic focused gunner card for Jaden, because really there hasn't been very many. A majority of the gunner cards outside of like area resistance have been like physically oriented,
yep,
like attack and stuff like that. So this is one that you could slap on Jaden and get that human killer, and the agility and accuracy would be super nice for him too.
absolutely, so definitely. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a really solid pull. I won't make any statements of worth the cost or not, but like as far as Holovision cards go, I think this is one that's more palatable than some of the others. I immediately see some great synergies here that I don't see in some of the other Holovision cards.
Yeah, one final thought I would say is that it is going to be part of that permanent pool, so it is something that you can pick up along the way, and hopefully by the time it's off banner, it will get thrown into the Soul Metal shop. We don't know from the JP side whether that is going to happen or not, because they haven't gotten they've gotten this card essentially at the same time as we have, so the shops haven't refreshed until this goes away. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that that's going to be at least one way we can build up. If we do pull it later.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Esper that comes along with this is an exceptional Esper as well. I think the only knock I've heard on it so far is the 16 agility being noticeably less than characters or Espers like Bahamut and Shiva, some of those others. But even still, 16 is not slow by most of our metrics. But I think that most people just think of it as, mirror matchups in particular. It's just nice to have a little bit extra agility. The rest of the stats are amazing. The charm res, I'm a little surprised by. I was really going to bet money on it being sleep res. I thought for sure sleep res of 25% would have been the thing, but the skill tree is exceptional for magic units. And I'll kind of just do a quick mock up here, and I know you can see this, but the big one is the 20% magic damage. Now, they will also cost TP in addition to the AP. That's the trade off. But in doing so, you also get 35 reaction block rate. You can still get 7% magic. You can still get a decent amount of accuracy here. What is that? 16 accuracy. And then if you want to fill in some either, strike res nodes, or the best thing, because it's a light Esper, it's not innately weak to dark. A lot of light Espers are. This one's not. But you can go for that 15 dark res, which obviously really kills some of that counterplay there. Have you used this Esper at all, or have any thoughts of it otherwise?
I've been building it up on some units. I haven't used it just yet, but just one note on the damage node there. It's not a flat 20%. It is essentially equivalent to a 20 mod. I would say though that I do consider it better, because even despite that, because this is something that would apply to any type of magic damage, whether it's a follow-up attack or non-elemental,
Hmm.
or really any magic-based attack. So it does have that versatility angle going for it. I do really value Espers that have reaction block on the board. That's something we haven't seen very often. I think maybe the last one was Dark Ifrit, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's correct.
But yeah, really versatile board. You got Not like the full 22 accuracy, but you got 16 on there, which is decent. And yeah, something that you can build up as kind of a general use Esper and have a lot of versatility in how you build it.
Definitely. So
I'm gonna
we also, as part of the live stream last night, got Final Fantasy IX announced. We did know that was realistically coming. We didn't know exactly the date, but we had a hunch based on the new JP schedule and whatnot. Over the last couple weeks, anything changed still about the characters and your thoughts, given Helena's released now and seeing some of the things in action?
I think that Zidane has aged a little bit better for me now that we kind of have seen how the meta has been developing, but also some newly released heroes over in the GP side with the Wind Veritas, who actually that combo with Zidane has been pretty solid actually because he has the same AoE resistance debuff that Helena has. And he's actually been performing pretty well for only being a level 120 unit with you know no limit burst or basically a reduced kit at the moment. I think they're going to add that stuff in over time, probably as the selection quest continues. But yeah, I think there's a little bit of upside for Zidane that we hadn't been privy to when he was first released.
I could see that absolutely, and I have the same feelings for Dagger. And you'd pointed this out earlier. You'd noticed in doing your analysis that her skills are non-reflectable. So when you talk about the Helena matchup, that's a really strong thing for her that those skills are not reflectable. But even when you look at her, we'll call it like anti-magic abilities, she gets all magic damage reduced by 10%, in addition to the innate 15% magic resistance. She's also got the AoE Spirit Down, which decreases enemy damage done. Her limit break is the dispel debuff. So when you talk about Helena's, AoE res down or the limit break, the minus 38% magic, the dagger limit break will wipe those imperils off the units. There's a lot in her kit, in addition to just like her having re-raise, and I think she has courage remover. It's one or the other back and forth. But there's a lot in Dagger's kit that I'm appreciating a lot more now and potentially using her against Helena, that I think she's got a lot more value.
I definitely agree with that. I think that she's looking like a pretty solid little magic bruiser. She can get very, very high spirit. I think, depending on which passives that you choose and things, she can be walking in like with 30 spirit base, maybe add some armor on there for another 20. And you got, she has a buff as well for another 20 on top of that. So she can very easily be at 90 to 100 spirit. And then, being able to kill your spirit penetration with her big diamonds, that's going to really do a lot for her survivability and the type of damage that she incurs. So I think that there's some interesting pieces there with Dagger too.
I completely agree. I don't know if I have any changes on VV myself. I still think he's a really strong magic unit that pairs very well with Helena, and giving her, he gives a guaranteed hit. He's also got remove shell. They kind of have some overlapping AoE type damage. Like there's some good synergy there, but I think he's still a solid unit. I'm hesitant though to speak praise though per se.
I do think, depending on how many people end up pulling for VV, the potential is there that he's really starting to shut down a little bit some of this like semi evasion that has been really sort of catching fire here over the past month or so.
Yep.
And particularly like in with the Helena recently, because surprisingly a very decent evasion unit with lights cards and Addison Ray there to give her the null sure hits. Vivi coming in with the AoE, the cross AoE sure hits, I think is going to be able to kind of shut that down a little bit. So
I
we'll
agree.
see.
Definitely, definitely. And then just, we'll talk more about the live stream last night. They started a little bit late, but overall it was a really nice live stream. They finished it off with giving out a bunch of awards, which you and I were privy to a couple of them. They did a Pillar of Support award where they gave us a shout out. I know you won another award for high score, I think it was. Or,
For most wins in class match, I
that's
was
what it
among
was.
the top 10. So
Yep.
it was definitely favoring like the people who started from the beginning and have played the whole way through. But uh, I really liked that part of the live stream. That's even if I wasn't on the list there at all, it was nice seeing that recognition of the community and the players and the people that have really invested not only their time but their money and interests and all that kind of stuff into the game over the years. So
Yep.
really enjoyed that.
I agree. I agree. And when you think about it, they have all the data. You know, how hard is it really to pick a couple and make a custom title? Like that takes 5 minutes, and but could yield a lot of upside, a lot of good favor. I thought it was a smart move, and overall it was a good live stream. I don't think we really necessarily learned a ton, at least from the Final Fantasy IX perspective. They gave us the roadmap, which we're going to talk about soon, which was a nice reveal to see what we have coming. But that's really it. I enjoyed it. I ended up turning it off early because I had to go to bed. Eastern time zone problems, but. Yeah, anything else you want to talk about the live stream?
They did give us that's a teaser for the costume change June, which I don't know if you caught that.
No.
No, they
No.
did that I think right before they got in, maybe right before they got into the award stuff. But they kind of blacked out, the details, but they kind of just showed the silhouette. And
Hmm.
based on what it looks like, I'm thinking mage. I'm thinking like maybe a glove unit because I couldn't really make out a weapon. So I would be all in for like a glove tank. That's kind of what I
Yes.
was positing earlier, like
Dude,
an ice glove tank. I think that would fit perfectly.
that would break open a whole new set of synergies. Do you think there are odds of her coming for the winter unit in that regard? Or do you think that's a little further down the line?
I think it's going to be a little bit further. I think we're going to get basically whatever they had planned for JP as the holiday unit, and I believe at one point before they said early 2024. I think the last time they talked about it. So
Got it.
that's where I think it's going to fall.
Got it. Fair enough. Okay, cool. Well, keep moving along here. Some other topics. So the Pixel remaster itself, there's a lot of upgrades here. I know there's a couple characters you and I were kind of high on. Just talked about our tier list last week and where they fell there. Have you rushed any of these units to upgrade them? Have you used them, or if you had to pick one or two, any of them that you're excited to use for yet?
To be honest, there's a lot of them that I want to awaken. It's the antlers are really few and far between at this point to kind of go back and awaken as much as I would like. But I have gone in and taken a few of them. I awakened Titus because he was kind of an old favorite of mine. Not because for meta at all, just
No, yeah,
for
that's
just for fun.
yeah.
I've always liked him. He was, one of my favorite Final Fantasy games as well. And then I did also awaken Noctis because I
Good
think
one.
he's one of the few ones that I think does have a little bit of appeal for the meta.
Yep.
Um, I'd say him along with Snow and Lightning. Some of the more recent ones are probably the ones that hold up. Some of the on the the best. So, how
I
about you?
I agree with that. What was I just gonna mention? Oh, have you purchased the new Royal Rank packs by any chance?
I haven't. I noticed them. I looked at them, and I know that there are a few antlers in there,
A
so I might need
few.
to.
I have like 16 antlers and 60 blossoms now after the Royal
Oh
Rank.
wow.
It was like 8K viz or something like that to get all the resources. And in there you get like a couple select two. So I just max reincarnated Grifford. I showed JB. Uh, and I did that through the Royal Rank packs. There was like 3 select 200 shard things and 3 select 300 fragment or whatever. Like the new Royal Rank packs are exceptional for trying to fast build stuff, and including antlers and whatnot. For the Pixel remaster, I think Noctis is probably still my favorite one in terms of actually being a viable upgrade. I have some slight copium for Aranea in terms of like the Pierce unit. I think they made like her job ability upgrade a good one. I really don't think she's gonna be that great, but like Pierce units can surprise you, I guess. I did have a small glimmer of hope that with Helena, with the magic meta, that he could actually see an upgrade here. Because if you consider, if you're going to use Helena in a mono light team, is he viable in mono light? They gave him the upgrade so that he boosts magic damage instead of physical damage. He has a Shawls esque buff in terms of like 20 AoE res. He's got the time mage with the quicken and the haste. Here's the problem: his AI is awful, top to bottom. The worst AI priority, the worst literal everything possible. He looks so good on paper and in theory, and the AI is just so bad because he does not have a support AI, so he will cast a spell and move forward. So it's like, okay, I'll put a bow tie on him. Maybe we can make that work. But his buff priorities is way off. His first priority buff is like the slash res and magic res up buff. That should be third. That's a terrible buff, so turn that off. His second priority one is that AoE and the hate down. The problem is he'll cast it in circles. So if you don't get your AI tuning right, he'll cast in circles, which means you'll never get the third one off, which is the magical 20% buff. And you'll never get the actual haste or quicken off, which, so sure, if you like shut off everything and really play with him, like then maybe, but like, man, I actually thought there's something there.
It's one of the reasons why Shawls is so good, because her buffs are, one of them is like a select that she can like, tag units all around her. And then the other one's like a big diamond. Like she like Gumi finally got it right with her. Hope I've never had much success with. It's really too bad because his vision card also had that really nice global upgrade that gave him an additional turn on his buffs.
Right.
Last basically an Emerald Echo that he has innately. Really, really nice buff. I loved it at the time. It's just that he's really, really difficult to use. And outside of Mono Light, he just has no potential because at
None.
this point, Gumi still hasn't fixed the fact that he's not on any job card in the game.
I don't get it. Yeah.
He's like the exact opposite of Slime for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yep. I don't get it.
So
No, he's spot on. It's tough because he can hit like almost 2,000 magic without reincarnations, which is crazy. And you put the Val 4 Vision card, like he's got some good penetrations. It just. All right, next topic. That's my copium. But we did get some limit break upgrades here too for Ildira, Frederica, and Engelbert. We'll start with Fred's first here. Hers I'm slightly confused by if I was reading this properly, that it's a decrease of missile attack for the target. Is that correct on mode of calc that you know of?
no, so this one is an error on Word of Calc. What it is this is actually a scaling in peril. So it's a 60%. So it works just like the AoE res in peril that we've seen on Helena, but it's for missile resistance. So
Oh,
60% of whatever their missile resistance will be taken away.
I like
So
that.
actually, it's actually pretty solid.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it does anything for her, but you know what? I see why they did it. A thumbs up. I like that.
The one thing that I wish they did is that they also reduced the cost of it, maybe down to, it's like some of the other LBs, they've also reduced it down to like 24 or 30. That I think is the one miss here. Otherwise, like that's actually a pretty nice upgrade. They also upped the range on it. It still has
Oh,
that decreased CT. I think they upped the range, right? Did they give it
they
like one
did.
more?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
big. That's honestly big.
So,
I agree. And you know what? I
um,
would normally the AP if I had only a pushback. That's the other part of the ability here. It's the recovery of AP of 10. She crit hits everything as far as I can tell. So although that is a little quote unquote steep, I don't think it's any steeper than normal. I mean, regardless, this is up and down. I think a really good one for all those reasons.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think she's coming back into the meta or anything, but it's definitely a solid upgrade for her.
It is. And for Ildira, hers is an interesting one. Hers gave her a nullification of 3 different kinds of status effects: paralyzed, berserk, and frostbite. They also gave an effect to teammates that when they hit enemies, they will decrease the enemy's essentially their human killer mod by 30 for those 3 turns. I think this is okay. Uh, I think this is kind of random, the nullification of those 3. I wish it was just nullification of all, if that makes sense. Like, I don't really see the big pro of only including 3 of them, because I don't think this decreased human killer of 30 is enormous either. 30 mod is good, but I don't know. For limit break upgrades, this seems minor.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they realize that it's still a great limit burst to this day, just for like the AoE quicken that it has.
Yep.
So they really didn't go too overboard on this one, but it is too bad. I mean, I think it could have been a little bit better. And this one is definitely a little underwhelming, but overall, it's still a great limit burst. It's held up over time.
Definitely. No, you bring a good point too, because when you take the manual angle versus non-manual angle, there's probably a lot more abuse that goes on with this limit break in manual. That if you were to overtune it
Oh yeah.
for auto PvP, that you'd disproportionately ruin some people's experience.
Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't increase the range or increase the amount of CT or anything like that, because Ildira is definitely one of the favorites for manual play for that quicken. So
I can definitely see that for sure. And the third unit here, Engelbert, got a really sizable increase to his limit break, which is good because he's the kind of character that typically you turn a lot of these toggles off and you just let him be a total meat shield. Maybe regenerate some health. But his limit break is that he's getting an increase of defense pen of 80 for that ability. It'll also dispel all debuffs for himself. It'll also be another form of hate. It'll give him hate of 12. I don't think this stacks with the taunting blade though, or with the other buff here. I'm pretty sure they don't stack. I think it just overrides it, if I'm thinking of hate properly. But still, 12 hate mid-fight on limit break, because you see how short range it is. No doubt that's a great mid-fight ability. The AoE res of 20 is huge, but the biggest thing here is that he's getting that reduction of physical and magical damage the larger the area attack size, which is super noticeable for Engelbert because you think of how negative his magic res is. That's a sizable damage mitigation for magic damage for him, particularly when you look at all these AoE magic nukers that are kind of coming into the game. He's not going to magic tank all of a sudden overnight, but like that hedges his weakness pretty well.
This is the exact same version that Saul has, and when Saul stacks his area resist along with that buff, it's very, very hard to do damage against him. So very, very nice upgrade here for Engelbert. I like this one.
Yep.
The increase in the damage, like with the defense penetration, is very whatever, but yeah. I do like the debuff dispel on there.
That's big. And AP reduction. We were just talking about that. It went from 38 to 24, which is pretty exceptional. That's a pretty large decrease.
And the range on this one too went up.
Good point. Yep, went from the immediate square. God, how do they... I mean, he's a day one unit, but look how bad this limit break is. That's terrible.
Yeah, he had one of the worst in the game for sure.
Good lord. Okay. Well, yeah, this is overall thumbs up as well. Worth talking about, to say the least. But that brings us now to the war room, where we'll talk a little bit, just conceptually, about some of the, shifts we're seeing in meta in the game and what we're anticipating. Right now, Black Rose Helena appears to be kind of everywhere. Limited Guild War just finished, so it's a little tough to really gauge the impact because cost-limited stuff, you get some teams that you don't normally see. But have you started theory crafting how you're approaching the Black Rose Helena meta at all? Like how to, I don't know, fight against it or anything like that?
A little bit. I really wanted to get in there today to do some mocking and really start that process, but we had a rest day today, and unfortunately that on the rest day we can't even do any mocking, which... Gumi, please allow us in the future to not only the 24/7, but if we have a day off, at least let us mock. Anyway, though, I don't really have a lot of great answers there at the moment. I think that's by design. I mean, the way that these units have been coming in, Gumi is purposely making them hard to counter so that you want to pull for them. So
right.
That's kind of where we're at right now. Of course, we know some of her weaknesses. She doesn't have the greatest accuracy, although you can shore that up. She doesn't have a way to break barriers. That is one thing you can use against her. Of course, being high faith, she is going to be susceptible to status effects as well. So, maybe you can get a berserk on her, maybe you can get stop on her, or, some of these other things. She might have stop resistance actually innately. I don't 100% remember, but you get the basic idea.
Yeah.
Those are some of the ways you can get to her. Evasion, barriers, which, to be fair, is some of the similar ways you would use to get to Saul. So I'm going to be trying maybe that Earth evasion team with Brad and Lucio, and see how that goes. Maybe to start off.
I would agree. I've seen in Arena, in free match, a lot of evade, opportunities, and she misses a lot. But in all my Guild War testing, that's still a tough team to take evasion into, because I've seen most teams putting the white mage sub on to give her holy, and Addison Ray has the guaranteed single hit as well. And so I've seen them both just evaporate units in one hit from either one of those abilities. So I agree. Evasion is definitely one way to go, but it is not nearly the guarantee that it might be versus someone like Soul, whose guaranteed hit is a type list, a much lower modifier, a little bit different. That, right now for me, I think the debuff weakening is one of the best ways you can go about it when you talk about reducing the damage the limit break does, reducing the AoE in peril and what that does. I also know that light res, going back to that, I mentioned that she has no typeless abilities in her kit. And so right now we haven't really seen anybody branch out from the, mono light teams most noticeably, but right now, if you just stack a lot of light res, I think that's a way to mitigate some of what she does. But it really is kind of an RNG fest too. I've seen so many fights. It's just a coin flip whether or not you land asleep or she lands asleep. Do you limit break first? Do they limit break first to get the reflect off or not? It's very up in the air, no matter how you try to control it.
Yeah, I mean there's definitely like you look at Shawls, who we talked about during the tier list last week. She does have, not only can she shut down dark, she can shut down light with the 30% element resistance. You can think about Sodali with his all element resistance buff. Of course, Demon Wall and Light Ring and some of these other things are always used in those type of builds. So that's kind of like the old reliable kind of the standby that's we've done to tackle light and dark since the beginning. But yeah, I think that's, like I said, it's really much designed that I'm sure whatever new unit they're going to release here in JP in the next week or two, probably going to end up being the best, hard counter to her.
Yep.
And we're going to kind of go through that cycle here.
It's true. I think the two things that I've noticed, the ways to expose her is, number one, going back to the old haste strategy. The light teams that I've been seeing, there's not a lot of opportunities and time for haste, which is why I was so hopeful for Hope. Where I'm like, this is great. You can actually have a caster in the team that can enable that. And I haven't seen a lot of them using TMRs and whatnot because they're so buff heavy. But on that note, she's got a really easily baitable range of 6. I've seen so many maps where, you get the right positioning and the right distance, she doesn't get the buff rotation off that you would hope for. And I think you could probably initiate that fight a lot sooner than most people would be comfortable with, as a way to maybe like catch someone off guard.
I think the other tough thing that we've been seeing with we talked a little bit about it earlier, but the light team building into evasion adds another wrinkle to it, that not only do you have the high magic damage that you have to worry about, but now you're having a accuracy check on top of that. So I think that particular team is probably the hardest one to face at the moment.
Yep.
That's one reason why I did like Bradley, although on the other hand, if she gets that courage to spell onto him, he's just toast. So yep. It's pretty tough even for him.
It's true. But I do have hope for Dagger, Dialdo, Bradley. I think that team conceptually would do rather well against her.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. Her agility isn't stellar. You have to try really hard to get her agility in like the 110s. Like you have to, like, Bahamut vision card, another vision card with a +1, fastest Esper, Zizabels, and then she hits 112 agility. Like, that's really stress testing it. I think there's a lot of opportunities that you can go for speed and really find ways to like lap her in the turn order.
I mean, she's a 2 buff unit, so unless she's getting haste externally, she's not going to have it at all. And yep. Like you said, she's got very much average agility, so that's definitely something you can use against her. I do like Summer Glassy a little bit, even though, like you were saying, that the debuff weakening is a big feather in her cap. She does also have the re-raise removal that, despite Helena being able to kind of debuff that away from her, usually I've found that Glaciella has the staying power that later on in the fight she can still get it off on her. So yeah, I think that's it ends up working out pretty well.
I agree. And to the point, I've seen many fights where Helena does not get that second buff off to prevent re-raiser move. And there's been many fights I've seen where Helena doesn't hit all the enemies in the other end of what? Speed back. Doesn't hit all the enemies on the opposite team to prevent their re-raise removal capabilities. Now, Glaciella is a frontlining unit, so she's going to get hit no matter what. But there's not, it's not a guarantee that you're preventing re-raise from happening. I agree with that.
That's kind of the double-edged sword of having that 7 range like she does, or the extended range on the diamond.
Yep.
That she can very easily be baited out on a smaller map. So if you're keen blading and getting out quickly, that's the rush strats, I think, could be a way to get to her as well.
Yep. The big sleep ability is a height of 3. And so that's the same concept. Range-wise, it's equal to the limit break and some of the others, but height-wise, even those topographical maps where you might not think you can bait someone, you probably can with that height capability.
Definitely.
So,
but definitely you're going to be, for people who haven't built it yet, you are going to be wanting to build the +6 white marshmallow accessories from the raids. You want a couple of them, because that's going to give you the 50% sleep resistance. It's also going to get you the poison resistance for the Sol matchup, and gets you some accuracy as well if they are kind of building into that evasion. So this is going to be, if it's not already, which I think a lot of us have already been using it, but this one is very much a meta accessory now.
Definitely, which actually covers or transitions nicely to the next topic about the status effect meta of sorts. And this happened a couple of weeks ago. It's not necessarily new. People were already, seeing a lot of poison from Soul. We were seeing the Vega TMR very widely used for that Berserk res. A lot of people have built up some of those trust stones in the meantime. There's just a lot of newer units with the 50% poison res that it's not as debilitating, but we're absolutely in a status effect meta still where Addison Ray has slow on her limit break, so does Jaden. He's also got silence, SR Little Leela for limited silence. There's a whole slew of status effects. Summertime Glacial has stop on her cross shape AoE. And to your point on the white marshmallow miniature, this is actually a top tier accessory for even hitting those evade teams that we're talking about, where you talk about getting that 21 accuracy and the 20 accuracy in the box stat while also getting the 50% to at least the poison and the sleep. Paralyze is technically good against Elia. That's still a thing. Petrified Confusion, little lesser known scene, but overall, still a really solid accessory for that.
I know that one thing that players have done over in JP with Elia is that they, as kind of units have really started shutting down that unit resist and Stag's impact, they really started building into that paralyze ability that she has, where
Yep.
you can build up or have her use that protect and shell buff that gives you the 45% paralyzed chance, and kind of use that as an attack instead. So this protects you there as well.
Totally.
On that note, though, like with the status effect meta, we're getting Vivi, not this week, but the week after. He's got stun on his limit burst. Shortly after that, we should be seeing the lightning Astrius at some point. He's got poison, so
Yep.
it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No, and I figured I'd give honorable mention to the Balo smartphone. This is still a really good accessory for some of those too, where in addition to some of the nice little extra stats here, free one agility, that's cool. There's a nullification of a handful of these. Now there's an upside and a downside where you don't allow your character to get quicken, protect, shell, or haste. Those are the positive ones. But to say prevent all the other ones, or courage, you cannot courage yourself. That's a big downfall for many units. But nullification of sleep, paralyze, confusion, charm, frostbite, slow, stop, stun, disable, berserk. Like that's nasty. Like it's a really good one. And I will say it does affect the AI sometimes. Where I'll give a good example. I know Addison has a protect buff with the barrier, right? If you have Balo phone on a teammate, Addison will not buff the teammate because she cannot give protect to that teammate. So there's some AI things that you have to work out when you equip this, but like I wanted to give us an honorable shout out. This is a really good accessory for that meta.
Oh, definitely. The one unit that I think a lot of people have experimented with this on was Raph, just because she's relying on re-raise. She doesn't care about the courage. Typically, she's not using haste or anything, though that may change with VV coming in. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good option.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, regardless, I mean, this is the time where you keep building those trust stones for some of the resistances. We're getting kind of creative with the trust masteries too, or TMRs. There's some TMRs that prevent status effects, but it's a new way to play the game. I'm not annoyed with it yet, but it's wearing on me a little bit. But I'm still appreciating some of the, chess matchup of the status effects overall.
As a manual player, I've always enjoyed that part of the game. All the way back to Astrius, who was like the original queen of the status effect. So yeah, I enjoy it. I like that additional wrinkle in the game.
Wait, who was the original queen of status effect?
Agrius.
Oh, Agrius. I'm sorry, they said Astrius.
Yeah.
Threw me for a loop.
Oh, did I say it?
Yeah.
Maybe I misspoke
Yes,
there.
you're right. Agrius. Yes, I remember those days vividly. Good lord, when's that rerun? But regardless, that's the war. We will talk about the roadmap here now too, though. So we'll move along here now to what was unveiled at the live stream. They gave us a roadmap for December. If Gumi does this on a month-by-month basis, I will be flabbergasted, quite honestly. This was one of the big downfalls to me of Road to Worldwide, where I thought we were losing this great benefit of foresight. And yes, it's not 6 months worth. 1 month is way better than a week, though. Like, there's some significant changes to get a head start on. And they gave us another one this month. I'm very happy about this. We can go through these week by week. I think no surprise, no curveballs here for what we're expecting. This Friday is Justin gave the official pronunciation. Was it Zidane? Zidane?
I think he said Zidane.
Zidane. That's what it is.
I've always said Zidane, so I don't know. I'm not going to change the way I say
I
it.
did too, but 12-year-old me didn't know how to read English very well, so I could be wrong this whole time. I'm kidding. But Zidane and Dagger, we're getting the Holovision card for them. We're getting the Final Fantasy IX collab quest, which I think this is really just the weapons. I don't think it's any more than that for the collab quests.
Yeah.
Um, the week after that, we're getting Vivi and his vision card. The same thing here, getting his equipment. After that, December 15th is the holiday unit for winter, which we know nothing about. There's also a corresponding vision card with that. We're getting another story chapter, which does that mean Asterisk is coming or no? Because I thought he was tied to another story.
He is tied to another story, but this is the story that they have to release before they can get to him. So he I very much think he's going to be coming at the beginning of January.
Okay, I could see that. I
I,
could see that.
I I kind of have a whole theory of how they're going to lay this out that I was telling my guild earlier, but basically they're you can see there that on the 22nd, unit released in December in the JP app. That I think is going to be Eld. That I think we're going to see Eld and JP this week, and he's going to come here for us at the end of December. We're then going to go into Astrius in the beginning of January. That is when JP should get Volk, which is kind of the next Ashen Warrior, or kind of the next part of that story. So we'll be getting that kind of simultaneous with them. We'll be getting Astrius, they'll be getting Volk. Then we'll get Volk at the beginning of February. I think that's how they plan this out.
I love it. I think you're spot on. I think Eld is just a matter of time at this point. It's reminiscent of Bridal Elia and Jade and the Celebrated kind of releasing those units in tandem. I think I might have seen that there was a data mine that had a scuffed spelling of his name in the code that maybe some people were reading into. I think it was spelled like ELDE or something like that, where people were reading into it that it might be him. But I agree. I'm excited to see the holiday unit. Obviously, they've done a lot better with these holiday units as of late. Winter's never really been great, but we'll see if they can turn that around. And the Trials of Reckoning is that last week of December. So if you don't have Christmas plans, go ahead. You got Trials of Reckoning
Oof.
to do that week.
That's kind of a fail, I think, from the operations team to have that during Christmas week where everybody's going to be with their families. They're not going to have time to do that stuff. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I am though excited to see those winter units. Obviously, we went a whole year without getting their upgrades. They should be seeing some LB upgrades, so maybe those units could have a resurgence here. We did see some pretty nice upgrades in the summer units, so we'll have to see what the winter stuff has in store for us.
That's true there. And then we're getting some quality of life updates too, where the big one is the removal of equipment proficiency. I thought they were going to also do that for the Espers, but apparently it's not written out here. I'm very eagerly waiting on that one as well. Same with unit affinity. I think they were just going to auto 5, which I'm very much looking forward to that. But they're also missing, at least again on this visual, the Trust Stone update, which did come with Final Fantasy IX in JP. So I don't know if they're just leaving it out. Maybe they from an update perspective, don't want to overpromise, and so maybe that's a big undertaking. I'm sure it is. That I'm looking forward to that. I cannot wait for the trust stone change to come into place. And just recapping quickly, you can now use trust stones, and you don't have to equip them with TMRs. You can equip them to the characters themselves, and you can use the trust stone on multiple units at the same time, and you can do it by game mode. So massive quality of life upgrade. It's going to change everything for many players.
I think that's the big one that everybody's been waiting on. So a lot of people I've seen very disappointed not to see it here for us in December. If for some reason they aren't able to get to it this month, I really hope that we'll see it in January. I really don't want to have to wait too long on that.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. But well, that's all we want to talk about with the roadmap, and now we'll segue to the Q&A section of things. Okay, so for the first of the Q&A here is, what kinds of limit break upgrades would you like to see for any of the units who haven't received them yet? Obviously very broad, lots of characters overall. I don't know if you want to maybe pick one, if you either want to create a limit break upgrade or character that you think deserves it or something unique. I'll let you go first if you want here.
Well, one thing that I've really wanted to see, and obviously they need to introduce this first on a new unit before they go back to the LB upgrades and give it to the old units, but I really want to see a magic version of Glassy's physical aura.
Yep.
And I want to see that on Agrius. I want to see that on Celis. And I want to see that on Warrior of Lights. I want to see that
Love it.
on some of like the primo, original magic tanks. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, Warrior Light absolutely came to mind. That would be a fantastic limit. Protect shell and the magic damage aura, absolutely exceptional for that. For me, for a unit upgrade, yeah, mine. I mean, we're already getting a lot of the older units caught up, and so trying to pick an older unit that's likely. I would go Immortal Zazan, who's the global exclusive unit, where his limit break currently is just this, paltry 4 range single target ability. It's just a 200 mod ability that increases his HP by 40% for 3 turns, which it kind of fits into his brawler evade niche that he kind of had at one time, but this limit break's always been turned off because he has some AP issues and it is not a great ability. I would love for this limit burst to be a nullify sure hit and a 200 CT up for a turn or something like that to really give him an edge and an incentive to keep this on to really, just perform any kind of function.
I wouldn't mind seeing the re-raise or Immortal Spirit protection buff.
That's a good one. Holy shit. That's
That
a
would be a good for him too,
that's a
right?
great one. Yes. Yes.
Kind of buff that onto his attacks.
It would have to be though. I don't know because it's a single target ability. You'd be at risk of like using it on one person and not meaning much.
I was thinking that it gives him the buff like prior to damage for like 3 turns,
Yep.
and then just all of his attacks can do that.
I got a solution. Make it a select two. That ability, just make that a select two, and remove re-rage and courage removal capabilities for 3 turns. I love it. This next question is a two-parter. I think we've answered it similarly before, but it's always fun to talk about this kind of stuff. And I don't know if we've exactly answered it, but the first part of the question here is, which do you think Square would choose as the next character for every Final Fantasy collab, including tactics? The reason why I think this one, at least this first part, a little formulaic is they've kind of set themselves up that the enemy they unveiled at the time of the collab tended to get released later. So like Golbez was teased early, he was released later. Kefka was teased early, he was released later. Cypher is for 8. So I think that's probably going to continue. I think they did X-Death for 5. I think they did. I could be wrong.
No, they did
Gilgamesh? Gilgamesh. Oh, I would love that. So I think if I had to guess, they're probably going to continue that trend. I don't think there's any surprises there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that first part of the question there.
The one that they kind of uh, changed that with was 13, where would they have Fang that they introduced,
Yes.
in the quests, which I love Fang from 13. She was one of my favorite characters in that game. Not one of my favorite Final Fantasy games overall. It was
No.
very like on rails, but I did like her as a character, so I would pull for her. I think from tactics, at this point, I want to see everybody. Like it's been so long since those characters have been good and relevant. Like the
Yep.
characters are so old at this point that we need the costume change Ramza. We need mercenary Ramza. We need some, King Delita.
Yep.
We need those in addition to new characters from tactics like an Oron or like Amelia Duel and Beowulf and all these guys. So
Agreed.
um, I would like to see maybe Gabranth from Final Fantasy 1. I know he's a favorite.
Wait, from 1 or from
Uh,
12? Gabranth is the judge from 12.
or
Garland. Garland is from 1.
Garland.
Yes.
Yeah, that's who I was talking about. From 4, I've always wanted to see Dark Cecil. I want to see Rydia.
Riddy is mine for
5.
4. Definitely. Actually, let's go through these. Hold on. I'll meet you on 1. I like him from 1. And they did a prequel story, didn't they? Recently, a Final Fantasy game was released with
Yeah.
him as the protagonist. So yes, to that. We're still waiting on Final Fantasy 2, so we won't make any guesses there. I agree with you on 4. Rydia is my choice there for sure. Very cool character. For 5, I think that's where you left off. If you want to continue with 5, who you liked.
5, they got my favorites from that game. Is it like Bart's dad, like Galoof? Is that his name?
I don't think it's his dad, but Galoof is one of the main characters, and I agree he would be a
Okay.
fantastic one to add to it. Yes, he's one of the mains, and then it's Kryl, who is his granddaughter. That's the familial
Right.
relationship. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Galoof would
Yeah,
be a great one.
that game, I don't know the story as well as some of the others. I've barely played that one. 6, it's got to be Shadow. It's got to be the Figure Bros. I gotta get Shadow in there and Sabin and Edgar for sure.
Sabin's mine. I like the Shadow pick though for sure. Shadow would bring a lot of people in, but Sabin is
Oh
definitely
yeah,
one of my go-tos.
especially if Shadow has his dog Interceptor. That would just be amazing.
Yep, definitely.
From seven, I don't know. Probably I like Sid. I like Vincent. Vincent would probably be my number one. He's pretty badass.
That I was gonna say undoubtedly for me would be Vincent. That would be such a cool concept to just make a missile unit, then you do some kind of transformation sequence follow up where he transforms and the sequence ability does something cool. Like I would love to see that.
Zach is cool too from Ever Crisis. So
Zach's one of my favorite characters in all of Final Fantasy, but I always feel bad because he's got so much overlap with Cloud that when it comes to like gaming properties, it just feels like a carbon copy paste sometimes. That uh, you want characters that have some personality to them.
I can see that.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VIII, which we just got recently. Oh, I've been saying Laguna forever, so we already know who my favorite is for that. I don't know about you.
I like Laguna. He's cool. I would probably pick Quistis. She was probably one of my original waifus in Final Fantasy. So
Yep,
got the librarian look going on.
absolutely, I can see that. For Final Fantasy IX, which just came out, obviously we're a little premature here in picking a character here. I don't know if you had a favorite from nine.
I think they got the three top ones, but I think my fourth would be Beatrix. I think although she's not like a main character, like I think is a fan favorite though. She's pretty cool.
I agree. I'm gonna go with the predictable one. I would stay with Kuja, which is who they're kind of teasing with the art. I think Kuja's like a worthy. How can I say this? A lot of the Final Fantasy that we just got up to, the earlier Final Fantasy games, a lot of their big bads were semi-generic characters. They're kind of rinse and repeat characters in terms of their personality, their style. But Kuja, I remember, is unique enough that I would like to see him as a unique character. And if I had to pick a backup, bro, I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I don't really have any favorites from nine, but Beatrix is a good choice.
Fuji is a good one too.
Yeah. Final Fantasy X. There's a lot of good options here.
For me, it's got to be Lulu and Riku. Got to go for those waifus there as well.
I'm with you on Riku. She's a staple of 10. I don't know how you could introduce another character and not have her be it. Yep, that's
I'm
the,
not like a huge fan of like Kamari, and I don't really like Waka that much either. They were definitely always left out of my parties back in the day. If I had to choose between Riku and Lulu, it would probably be Riku first.
for me too. Lulu's great. Lulu's great, but Riku is not only from 10 but 10-2 as well, which isn't a fan favorite by any means, but she's been involved enough that I feel like she's the next one up.
I always thought like the gameplay from 10-2 was actually really good.
Are
It
you
was just like the story was like cringe though.
literally reading my mind? I actually vividly remember this Final Fantasy X-2 at the time. I remember being like, this is probably the most fun Final Fantasy I've played since I can remember. It was just like an actual fun combat system. The world felt very seamless. Like it was just
Yeah.
very enjoyable. Yeah. And I think we're still due for 12. 13, we said Fang. I don't know if you have another one. For
Who would you be your top three from 12?
Oh, so Balthier is like a definite.
Althea,
Um,
definitely.
I'm pro Gabranth, and Gabranth has gotten some love in Dissidia. They've brought him in. I'm cool with that. I like him a lot. I kind of feel like you have to go Vaughn just because he's the protagonist. It feels weird to not say
Mm.
him. I wouldn't pick him as my top three, but like if I'm making a prediction, like he's got to kind of be there. But man, I don't know. What's her name? Good lord, the bunny. Oh my god, Freya, Fran
Fran, yeah, Fran.
is a great option too.
Yeah, Balthier and Fran. I like Ash and Bosch too.
Yep.
But Gabrantha would be like he would definitely be like the villain. Like I think that's a good pick for that.
Yep, I'm with you. I know you said Fang was one of yours for 13. Oh, I would be cool. Hold on a second. 13, I would be cool with them going to 13 too. I would be cool with either Noel or Caius Ballad. I thought both those characters were like pretty decent additions. Sarah's okay, but I don't think Saz or any of the other Vanille. I mean, I know they're like main characters in the game, but I don't think there's enough like fanfare around them. At least for me.
Yeah.
13 again, not my favorite game ever. It was like one of my least favorite Final Fantasies. So yeah,
I mean Sid Reigns is okay too. Kind of the villain.
he was okay. He
Yeah.
yeah, could have been worse. Yeah, that game. Yeah,
Vanille and Saz, yeah, they're not my favorite either.
yeah, almost.
Especially Vanille in the game is very annoying.
I agree. Yeah, 13 was a big swing and a miss for me. And Final Fantasy 15. I mean, you have to go with Gladio and Ignis, right? Like, how could you not? How do they put Aranea in the game before they put the other bros in there? I don't know.
I like Luna Freya too.
Good choice. I would just be worried that Luna Frey would just be a stereotypical support again. Dagger, they've done a good job making her more of like a DPS, but there's so many. I don't want to say like sexist stereotypes. Like I'm not going to go that angle with this, if you know what I mean. But like it's kind of like, all right, we got Aerith and we have Lena and we have God Ayaka. Like how many of the it's kind of like a trope that I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, mixed feelings.
I did really like what they did with Dagger and kind of like the summoning magic. So I mean, Luna Freya is kind of one of the big summoners too. So I mean, maybe they could make it cool.
Yeah, I could hopefully get creative. I agree with you there. Okay, and I think that's basically. I know 16 is still coming around, but I don't know enough about 16 yet. And this is a question we got from 2 weeks ago, which is a good question. It's for both of us. Bit of a personal question. How are you two holding up lately? Burnout's a real concern. There's just so many units coming so quickly. I don't think anyone expects you to have reviews out immediately, but there's definitely been a bit of a slowdown on them, and I can only imagine the stress you end up placing on yourselves trying to keep up. You both kind of touched on this a bit in the video from 2 weeks ago, talking about how the pace has increased. Much love. Yeah, how about you? What's going on with like Burnout? Or like I think it's more content creation too that they're taking that angle on. How have you been faring with that?
I've definitely slowed down a little bit. At one point, I tried to do maybe one video, like maybe last year. I mean, at this point, I'm doing my reviews. There's stuff that I would like to do and get to, but I feel like I've been putting like some of that extra time and effort into the podcast, and that's been like a good outlet for wanting to talk about the game and what's going on with the game. That I haven't felt the urge as much to go in and make guides and things like that. That's maybe if only something is really striking me, I might want to do something like that. But aside from that, I like to review the characters, and that's what I'll continue to do. And really enjoy the podcast. This is probably my favorite thing, in terms of the game every week. So yeah, how about you?
No, same. I don't think I'm getting burned out. I know for that like 3 week period, it just so happened like I was on vacation and then we skipped, and so it might have felt like we had a pause on content because we did. But I know for me, it's getting to the point where I've almost reached the rinse and repeat territory. Whereas I go through some of these character reviews, it becomes just slightly monotonous. And it's not that I don't want to do it; it's that I feel like I'm not adding any value anymore. If that makes sense, where it's like, great, they have 80 defense pen. Like you can read that, you can see that. Their agility values. Like I know we give some stat insight, but stats are like such a minor part of what goes into characters nowadays too. That the character reviews, I feel like I'm not getting the same teaching emphasis, and it just kind of feels like you're going through the motions, which is why you might have seen me last week doing all those limited Guild War replay and like map analyses. Like that to me is like a new fun, like engaging type of content that as I don't think it's a burnout. I think it's not like I've kind of run my course with character reviews where it's like we're just kind of saying the same thing every week. Like, great, 400 base magic, woo! Like they all have that. You know what I mean? It's just it gets a little mundane and turning the wheel. That just trying to get more creative with what we do for content, which I think we will. We want to do a Black Rose Helena showcase next week on the podcast. I'm sure we'll both come out with content related to that as well. And I think it's really it. But I wouldn't say it's burnout now.
I know for me, like part of the slowdown for me has been really getting into some of the competitive sides of the game where I competed for Trials of Reckoning. I competed for Class Match. I was in the finals for WDL, and I was really putting a lot of my focus towards really competing at a high level in the game, and that was where I was getting a lot of enjoyment. And the content creation has always been more of just a fun hobby for me. I'm certainly not making any money or really anything with it. So
Nope.
I do that for to kind of learn new skills with video editing, and it's kind of fun to talk about the game. But like I said, this has really stolen some thunder from that for me. So I've felt less of an urge as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is like personal satisfaction. Anyone wondering, like, we don't make money off of this, like, in the least. It's really just like a personal enjoyment. I know for me, it's my way to learn that by me doing the character reviews, I get to know the game more. It helps me retain it a little more. I'll share this for a quick second. To your point on like improving your video editing skills, like I know for me too, like I've never used Photoshop nearly as much as I do nowadays. Even my Excel skills, I've gotten really creative with some of these spreadsheets, and I'm still trying to find a way to share them publicly. I'll keep saying this. The reason why I can't do this is because many of these functions aren't compatible with cloud-based versions of Excel. but even like making like vision card graphs and stuff, like this is like a skill that I don't get to utilize as much, that I get to like use as my creative outlet when I do content creation. So there's so many things to it in terms of Photoshop and Premiere and Excel and PowerPoint, like that it just becomes a growing or learning opportunity too. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's everything that we had for the podcast tonight. Again, we have a fair amount of stuff coming out. I don't think any surprises, at least, other than the winter holiday unit coming out in terms of throwing us any kind of curveballs. But overall, I think the game's still in a really fun place at the moment. I'm excited to see what happens. Just Guild War stuff in general. I think it's a really healthy game balance for now. We've seen some really fun units come out to play in the fray of things, and hopefully we get to see some of those continue on. So, yeah, it's my final thoughts.
Yeah, I think we, as a community, we went through a really, really hard the road to worldwide. I think they pitched it and as something that's they thought it was going to be a good thing. It really backfired, and the community really had kind of a culling where we went through some stuff. I think we're finally on the other side of that, and I feel like the game is in a better place. I think that Gumi has gotten the message. We're getting better things in the shop. We're getting more player-friendly deals. And that's what we want to see at the end of the day. We want to see the units be a little bit easier to build. We want to see more access to shards and more access to vision cards so that we can play PvP, because you absolutely need recent units and recent vision cards to be able to compete. And if the only people who can compete are the people that are pumping a bunch of money into the game, it's not a healthy overall game at that point. So hopefully this recent trend continues and we have a solid 2024.
I agree. Looking forward to it. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon.